Wise Wednesdays started on April 1st with a humble episode on forgiveness. Between then and now, we've had heart-led conversations on happiness, stress management, relationships, resilience, public speaking, respecting boundaries, self-discovery, mindset, just being, listening, reclaiming your life, intuition, and even food. I would like to thank all my listeners and the guests who gave me their time and trust. It is because of you that we kept going. It is because of you that we kept growing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so, so much.
Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to episode 35. I have with me today LaChelle, who's also known as America's SuperMom. She is a coach, she is a podcast host, she is a victor mindset champion, a happy heart, someone who also has an acronym for SMILE, and someone I absolutely adore for her strength and her powerfulness. So over to you, LaChelle, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. I am really, this is just really means a lot to me because we both do share the importance of a smile. And that really resonated with me. We have another person who is in our corner too on LinkedIn, Michael. So I want to give him a shout out. But yes, very passionate through my own struggles with depression about what a smile can do and how we can move forward and overcome that. So a little bit about me is that my husband and I have 15 children, hence the name America's SuperMom. And currently we have 10 of those 15 children living at home and 8 of them doing e-learning. So needless to say, I have to remember to smile all the time because, life can get kind of chaotic. We were just talking briefly before, and I do interviews as well. And yesterday, because of the computer bandwidth, I kept dropping from my own interviews, and my guest had to be the lead host. So we just laughed about it. But that's just some of the ups and downs when it comes to parenting. You never know what you may be faced with, and being able to embrace any obstacle with a smile is what I am very passionate about.
Absolutely. And I was so excited to have you on board that I even forgot to introduce my own self. How's that for a group So hi everyone, once again. My name is Ruqaiya Khan and I am the founder of Smiletastic. Welcome to the multiple platforms that I'm streaming this on. And if you're new to the place, please do subscribe and support the host. And having said that, when I run these episodes, these conversations that I do on Wednesdays, I always ask the guest speaker, that what would you like to speak on? And it always has to, I prefer to have a topic that for them to speak on a topic that resonates very powerfully with them. And when I asked LaChelle, up came the message saying, yes, I would like to speak on Masked for Greatness. So help us understand, what do you mean when you say Masked for Greatness?
Yes. So it is really kind of what's going on now in my life. For many years, as I mentioned before, I struggled with depression. So just a little history. I was raised an only child, and my mom was one of 12. And for her, education was away from humble beginnings. She focused on that. She moved away from home, had what she called a successful life following education. So that was what she instilled in me. So with that, I was raised to be a high achiever, to seek the rewards and accolades from hard work. So I had that mindset going into having a family, and everything that I knew that I was working towards to get a good education, which would lead to a good career, being married, having 2 kids, nice house, a cat and a dog. I did not have that reality. I met my husband, we started having children, and here we are with 15 kids later. And during that process, what I was working towards or knew to be the elements of a successful life, I wasn't following that roadmap. And so I was now into being a stay-home mom, which was what I really enjoyed doing, but I had no example for that. All of my colleagues and friends, they were on that career path as well. And so I had to try to navigate through this uncharted territory and try to make it really fit for me. So just in a nutshell, I just really had a lot of high standards for myself. I had a lot of checklists for things to do. And daily, because of the size of my family and different decisions that I was making, I felt like a failure because I wasn't able to accomplish everything that I had going on every day. And so during this time, I really struggled with depression for a period of 13 years. And I also was hospitalized 3 times during that 13-year period. And so after my last hospitalization, I just really was able to take the blinders off and remove myself from that victim mentality because I really felt like all these things were happening to me and I didn't take accountability for my own decisions and actions. And so it wasn't until after my last hospitalization that I just said, I can't keep blaming my husband, my children, circumstances. I'm the common denominator. So I need to be willing to take accountability. But one of the things during that time that I really strongly remember is my husband had a lot of different leadership capacities that he had to serve in. And it just really stood out that I felt like I was wearing a mask for every different situation. So he was a officer in the military. He was a pastor. Then I had the issue of being like a class mom. So each one of these different places where I would be, I felt like I had to put on a different mask or have this different belief system or set this certain example. And so part of me walking away from my depression was to remove those masks. But then now we are in a global pandemic where we have to wear them. And so now I say I can wear a mask now, but it has a different meaning. And I feel that it's because of that experience that allowed me to experience greatness of what I'm experiencing right now.
Awesome. So like you literally reframed the whole scenario for me where it's no longer a mask that's limiting. It's a
Right.
that was liberating for you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And earlier today when I had my daily live, I was speaking about how those validations that don't show up also validate because they validate our neediness. They validate so many other things about us. And we wonder if they're validating something about the other person. And because we're thinking of that, we're not able to see the other side of the picture.
So true.
And I love what you said about, scoring high, wanting to do stuff and seeking that approval. Tell us more about validations and what part they play in your life now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm able to be so transparent and authentic because I have learned through my own situation where I stand on things. And when you don't seek validation, it gives you the freedom to truly express who you are, what your values are, but you also have empathy and compassion for other people. So I always tell myself, I may feel this way and someone else may feel another way, but I can fully express who I am and I can fully allow them to express who they are. And I don't have to change them. I just have to be intentional and figure out what are they going to teach me? What am I going to teach them? And it's a different way of approaching a conversation, a collaboration, a project, because it's not about me and what I've experienced and what I have going on, but it allows me to be very objective. And just for example, we're coming together to have this show. You have a SMILE acronym and I have one. So it's like, we are coming together for a common goal. It doesn't matter what your story was, how you started, the goal is for us to empower other people. And we can do that in a way to where it's not that intimidation of feeling like, well, I want her to see things my way, or, I want to accommodate her mindset. We can just really be able to speak to two different audiences, but the similarities can overlap and we can even acquire more audiences because of it. I hope that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense. And as you were sharing that, what came to my mind was this beautiful picture, this beautiful canvas where both of us are actually like making strokes using our own colors. And yet these colors beautifully blend together to come up with either a different shade altogether, a shade lighter, a shade darker, or as I said, a different color altogether. So each of us has a paintbrush. We are picking the colors that we want to. We're bringing our thoughts to the conversation, to the canvas, and contributing.
So true. And I find when those things happen, that just like you said, you get a new color, something you hadn't even anticipated. It really allows you to create a unique masterpiece because of that connection, conversation, and everything. So I am just in awe in being able to be free enough to where it's not a situation of seeking validation, but it's seeking a new idea, concept, a new masterpiece. That's what I'm striving for, rather than if everybody resonates with my story.
True that. And on that note, let's start talking a little bit about your smile and how it came about. I'd love to know.
Yes. So I created a strategy and a philosophy that helped me overcome my depression after I got out of the hospital for the last time. And that's the basis that really helped me to overcome that depression. It's fresh start is the philosophy that I came up with that. But as I pondered that, it was really something that happened after depression. So during this time in the global pandemic, I was doing a lot of Facebook Lives with different groups to help the moms adjust to working from home and dealing with homeschooling during quarantine. And, it just, in my case, I did not see the signs. Every time I was hospitalized, my husband sought intervention for me because I was just so much on that hamster wheel of checking the boxes, making sure I have everything done, and people pleasing and not having boundaries, whatever the case was. And so I just thought, in this case, I went to the hospital 3 times, suffered for such this large time for 13 years. There should be something that's proactive, that is not a recipe once you've been depressed, something that can kind of stop you from getting down that path really in advance so that you don't have to have the situation that I had. So Smile is really a daily check-in for people to begin to see the different elements that can help them from not going into that downward spiral. So the elements of the Smile for me are your sleep, your mood, your inner voice, laughter, and energy. So in many times, as I look back and reflect, I was really at a deficit in each one of those areas. I might have put on a brave front outside of my home when I was with my kids and doing whatever errands, but inside, when I hit the door at home, I was feeling in a bad space. I was telling my inner voice was telling me things like, yeah, you did that thing right, but what about, all these chores that aren't done or whatever. And it was just this back and forth on a lot of these issues. And really the main thing was the sleep. So I really was at a place to where over that span of time, I was only sleeping like 3 or 4 hours a night. And a lot of that was due to breastfeeding or my kids waking up in the middle of the night with night terrors. But you don't know what you don't know. I was just going through experiencing life and not even seeing the forest for the trees. So those are really the elements that I tell people are very important to kind of really fine tune and look at in their life in order to minimize their own downward spiral.
You spoke about sleep, you spoke about mood and inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
What is, and L stands for laughter. What is E?
Energy.
Energy.
So that was
tell,
a good one
yeah,
too.
tell me a little more about energy and laughter.
Yes. So laughter was my husband worked a lot of hours. He was always the kids were asleep when he went to work, and they would be asleep a lot of times when he got home. So the times that he was at home, he really was the one who had a lot of jokes, and I was always the taskmaster who was with the kids all hours of the day. And it made me really feel like, hey, we have things that have to be done. We don't have time for laughter. You're joking. I'm trying to be serious. And it really just kind of sent me on this tangent where I felt like he was the fun parent. Even though he would only be there for short doses of time, he got to have fun, but I always had to be responsible. So that really was a hard thing. And my husband that's one of the things that keeps him in balance is having a great sense of humor. And I just didn't have that. And so that was one of the things that really was hard for me. In addition to energy, we talk about self-care. Well, I really didn't know what that was. So my idea of self-care would be, okay, after I get the kids to bed, I will go ahead and focus on me. But by that time, I'm exhausted, and I'm falling asleep on my me time. And I'm believing that I could read a book. Well, the book is in my lap. I'm asleep in the chair or whatever, and waking up in the middle of the night. I've got my clothes on. I haven't really had a nice bedtime routine because I'm just trying to steal some time for myself, and it's not really planned and organized. So needless to say, it never really gave me that energy that I needed. And so one of the first things I did when I decided to be more proactive in my own frame of mind was to flip that around and give myself my me time first thing in the morning. Because I was giving my best, which wasn't a lot because I was not really refueling like I should during this time. But now it's like I give myself my best so that I can give my best to others, namely my kids who are the first ones to see me in the morning, and then anybody else who I encounter that day.
Super.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's so important, isn't it? Energy, laughter, inner voice, mood, and smile, and sleep. I think I read it the other way around. Yes.
I'm sorry, that was one of my daughters. She came
No,
to show me her nail.
no
She
issues
wants
at
to
all.
say hi.
Hey there, how are you?
She's saying, "How are you?"
Good.
Okay, let mommy finish her interview.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Go tell them to quiet down. Cute. She got her nails done.
We didn't get to see them.
Yeah, she went off.
Oh,
Okay. But
all
I'm
right.
sorry. So you asked me a question about flipping it around?
I just read it the other way around instead of SMILE. I read it the other way around, but and that's okay because no matter what order you say it in or use it in, it just fits perfectly when it comes to raising your awareness, understanding what you truly need, and also understanding that so many things are attached to mood swings.
Yes.
And we don't understand what's going on. We just, they say women and mood swings kind of are synonymous, but that's not the case. Where we probably it's synonymous because we're the biggest givers. We
Right.
tend to constantly give and forget that we need to receive as well. And in
Mhm.
fact, some of us even push away from receiving because we feel no, we need to constantly only be giving because that's how we've been brought up.
So true. Yeah. And for me, like I said, self-care, that was definitely not on my radar at all. It was always my self-care, I thought was what I gave to others. I thought that was really going to fulfill me. So if someone called me and they had an emergency or, I was coming to the rescue, I thought that was enough to keep me fulfilled. And it just wasn't. It was really giving my power away to other people. It was keeping me on this emotional roller coaster. And, I never really had the ability to have a day that was under my control. A calendar really didn't mean anything because even though I had the list of tasks, it was always pushed to the side if somebody called me with an emergency or needed something. And I felt having my life that way was really going to get me fulfilled, and it was going to make me feel important and validated. And it just really accomplished the opposite.
I'm sure.
Mhm.
Michelle, tell me something. When did you finally learn to say no, if you have?
Yeah, I have learned, no is like I say no for everything first. Depending on, now I am really all for mental wellness. So if anybody wants me to say yes, that's your lead in. Okay. I don't care. You might say, oh, I have a business thing, but I want to talk about mental wellness. I will figure out a way to get there. But I think it's just now I realize that there's only so many hours in a day. And I realize what I'm able to bring to that day. So even with me talking about mental wellness, I want to be at my best. And I realize there's a limit to that. So I am able to look at my calendar, see what I have going on. And if I really don't have the time or the bandwidth to be my best version of myself, then that really helps me to say no, because I value really being the type of person that people want me and expect me to be when I show up, if that makes sense. So if we're talking about smile and I get on here and I'm just like down and depressed, or maybe I'm talking about some topic that's totally different than what we are expecting me to discuss, to me, I think that is not showing up,
Hmm.
so if something is not in a space to where it allows me to show up and be authentic, then it's easy for me to say no.
Hmm. And that was a trick question because uh, instead of asking you, was it difficult for you to say no? I think I just asked you because I know you're all for mental wellness, and
Mhm.
part of mental wellness is knowing and respecting your boundaries. And
Mhm.
so many of us struggle with saying no. It's so tough.
Mhm.
We have a question around this. Thank you, Josephine, for asking. Great question. She says, what can we do to help women in a relationship who are afraid to say no?
Yeah, I think the first thing is for them to have their own awareness that you cannot accomplish everything by yourself. And what is it that you feel that you bring to a situation? So, for example, let's just even say motherhood. I struggled with getting 3 square meals a day. Now, I used to make everything from scratch, it was homemade. And till one day I thought about it, I was like, we have something here called Subway. I don't know if you guys have it there in India, but
Yep,
it's
yep.
a sub sandwich, right? And I'm like, they make millions of dollars every day selling sub sandwiches and chips. What's wrong with my kids having a sub sandwich sometimes? Because I was so bent on feeling like a good meal is something that I have to have homemade every time that I cook. And so something like that was a lot more liberating for me, where I begin to understand what's the goal. The goal is for them to have a healthy meal. A healthy meal does not always mean immediately home cooked. I can meal prep. I can make some things in advance, freeze them, and just put them in the oven. So once I got my head wrapped around a different way to accomplish a goal, then it gave me that freedom to recognize what it's going to take for me to get those meals and how I can begin to delegate, how I can add my children into the mix of that so it's not as tasking. So I think when it comes to relationships, you have to really figure out, what is this person really asking of me? And is this in line with my values? Is this something that I can accomplish with ease? Or do I need help doing it? And when it's something that involves you having other people, then it's easy to say no because you cannot commit for others. So for me, for example, if I have a goal that, um, I want my kids to get on honor roll, right? I mean, I want them to get the best grades. But if they are struggling or if that's not their desire, I have to make sure that we're all on the same page because they're going to be doing the work, not me. you know. So yeah, I can have a goal. Oh, I want them to get straight A's or whatever. But if they're not willing to work for those straight A's, I'm already starting out by disappointing myself because I'm having an unrealistic standard, one at which I can't do any work towards accomplishing that. And I'm not even including my kids in that scenario. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I
Mhm.
know moms who kind of run themselves crazy by being helicopter moms, where they want their kids to score so well, and they're constantly hoovering around and irritating the child and themselves and the husband, and the energy in the house is total chaotic. So it's
Yes.
just about understanding it. It's their goal. It's important for you to make them aware that this is possible. It's important for you to kind of motivate them, but then you leave them to work their way through it, and
So
that's so
true.
important.
Yeah.
um
Because, and that's one of the things that I've learned after depression that has really changed for me. Before I would be, it puts you in a state where you're nagging a lot more. It's like, oh, you need to go do your homework. You need to do this. You're like micromanaging them. Whereas now, I have had some children, even now, they're dealing with this remote learning, and there are times that they don't make the best decisions. They're trying to avoid getting in their class or turning the camera on or whatever. And I just simply ask them, I say, look, you know what? I've been in your grade before. I've already graduated. I have a college degree. But my work is not going to help you with your work. You have to decide, where do you want to stand? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to the next level of education? If they're in middle school, do you want to go to high school? And really being okay with asking those hard questions, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones doing the work. So I want them to come with their own source of motivation so that all I'm doing is reminding them. Now, if you said you wanted to get straight A's, do you really think it's a good idea for you to, be outside playing basketball for 2 hours when you don't have your homework done? I can just ask them that question, let them decide, and that, it's a lot better situation rather than nagging them. Get in here, do your homework.
So we have I think this Kunal's question nicely segues us forward. He says, what do you suggest to manage adult kids of digital generation who don't like to follow all instructions of parents?
Yes. So the first thing is you have to have a better relationship with them. One to where they want to hear what you have to say. So I know even with my older children, this is something that's really uh in full transparency, is something that I'm working towards, because when I came home from the hospital the last time, I realized that there was a lot of dysfunction with my relationship with my children, the way that I had raised them, and some of the things that I was doing, helicopter mom, so to speak, was not beneficial for this new mindset that I had adopted in terms of allowing them to be their authentic self, me to be my authentic self, and give them the space for us to create a new foundation together. So, with that being said, I have had a place to where I just only offer advice when it's asked for, because even though they may feel like, hey, I might have the answers or whatever, kids just want to be able to be responsible enough to make those decisions on their own. They want to have that confidence. So I allow them the space to do that, and just really refraining from a lot of my comments. There would have been a time where it's like, now, see, you probably shouldn't have done it this way. I now ask questions like, so what did you learn from that? Or how did that make you feel? Ways that I can begin to have an emotional connection with them so that they'll be more apt to discuss some of these things when they are saying, man, I'm not feeling my best. And so then it's a conversation of how we're feeling rather than them feeling like, oh, I didn't get it right. I did something wrong, or, beating themselves up.
And I think the mistake a lot of us do in relationships is the favorite phrase, I told you so.
Right. So true. And, I have learned that I don't know everything. And I'm learning every day that, no one knows everything. We have to kind of go through this world together. And the more approachable that you can be to recognize, hey, you know what, you might have failed in that area, but let me show you where I failed also. It might not be, and I really connect with people when it comes to depression. I lay my depression out there, but I also try to find ways that this can be a connection, a common ground where maybe someone's struggling with an addiction of, drinking or smoking or whatever the case is. I can say my faults out there in a way that makes them feel comfortable to say, it's not the same thing, but she does know what it's like to deal with maybe the shame of what other people may think or different things like that, so that you can have a connection and move forward.
We have a question from Cindy, and Cindy, I'll get to that, but I'd like to ask you something else. There's a
Okay.
shame that is attached to depression because not many people understand that it's real. A
Mhm.
lot of people can with all good intentions can ask you to get over it or ask you to move on, or they just feel like, okay, get up and it'll be gone. Just start doing something and it's gone. Tell us a little more about the reality of depression
Yes.
and the
So
shame attached to it.
I think the main thing in dealing with shame was, my life before depression was one that I felt was successful. I was always reminded of the good decisions I was making. My grades reflected it. The opportunities that I had to advance, the promotions I received in the jobs that I worked, and all these different things. And so for me to have this period of depression, it really surrounded a lot of failure to me, of not really being that person that I remember myself being on a regular basis and not having that validation. Now, I would have people on the outside when I would go places, they're like, wow, I don't see how you do it, with this many kids. And as the number increased, I still received that level of accolades for people, but that was like a 5-minute conversation. I had to go back to my real life. And I think the shame of recognizing that, I really was responsible for the decisions that I made. I tried to even pass that responsibility on to my kids and my husband because I blamed them. It was like, if they had done whatever and I wasn't working so hard and all these kind of things, whatever my mindset was about it, um, because it would change for every scenario, right? So I could be the victim, right? But I think once I realized that I had to take accountability for these decisions, people don't do what you don't allow them to do. So
Oh,
even if I blame them, I still had to take accountability because I was allowing it, right? And so once I really got to the point of forgiving myself, because people talk about forgiving others, I had to forgive me for the decisions that I made because I felt like those decisions didn't reflect who I was. But at that point, I was so blinded by all the other distractions of trying to please people or not having boundaries and not getting sleep, not taking care of myself, that I couldn't see clearly that I was doing this to myself. So I had to forgive myself first. And then that's when the shame was able to just melt away.
hmm. I'm just going to let that sink in because that
Mm.
was so. People don't do what you don't allow them to do because
Right.
they don't know they're supposed to do it. It's as simple as
Absolutely.
that. And somewhere, I guess, ego comes in the way where you feel like, oh, if I'm to ask somebody, just either means I'm not capable of doing it all by myself,
Right.
or I'm weak or whatever. But we kind of make it all about ourselves, whereas it's
All
not.
about ourselves.
We think we're
So
so
true.
important.
So true. I gave my daughter this illustration. I'm part of a group project. We have a book launch tomorrow, right? And this book, I have two authors, Dawn Evans and Tracy, and I'm one of the people that wrote the book, right? I have a chapter. And I did a thing this week and I said, if you're so busy and consumed with getting the credit, how many more projects would you have if you weren't in that situation? So for this, I just had to write a chapter, but because, I have to share that title with 22 other people, but the book is done. It's able to inspire, it's able to be given out. But if I'm so concerned with, oh, it's my book, my story, I mean, that book would probably still, I don't have a book that I've written alone by myself yet because I have so many other irons in the fire. But if we let go of our ego enough and continue to join forces with others, we're going to actually be doing the work rather than talk about the work that we want to do.
It's like at every time you like throwing these little gems of wisdom around, like little nuggets of joy. And one thing, I have Cindy watching, who's watching us all the way from the US, from Ohio, if I'm not wrong. And yes, and she is the one with who I started Wise Wednesdays. So I have her on every time on the live, and so just as an idea, I passed it and I said, hey, would it be okay if we started doing weekly interviews? Would you like to come on board? And guess what? We started out with forgiveness.
Wow.
I feel that's so important. She has a question here. She asks, and the reason I brought her up was not just because of the question. When I speak about ego, Cindy says that's just about being right-sized. It's about being right-sized. So thank you, Cindy, for that. And her question is, how were your values conflicted, and how have you aligned your behavior to your values today? What changed or clicked for you?
I'm sorry, my kids are in the background. They were just asking questions. So I'm trying to be focused on this and then that background noise. I'm sorry.
No,
can you repeat the question?
I will. So she asks, how were your values conflicted?
Mm-hmm.
And how
Before
on your journey, how were your values conflicted? And and how have you aligned your behavior to your values today? What changed for you?
So I think this is a great question because I feel like I still had the same values. Right? I still had the same values, but what happened was I had some ego around those values. So just like I mentioned the book, I felt like I had to get credit because I was raised where it was all a result of my own performance. When I had a family, I had to realize that, my value might be education and performing well in school, but I had to give my kids the space to come up with their own set of values. There's certain things like, I don't believe in lying, being a person of integrity, which are things related to character. But the things that I wanted to have important, and I had to give them the space to decide if they wanted that also. And so now I find that works so much better because I'm not going around nagging them and saying, hey, you're an Adkins, you don't make those kind of grades, right? These are some of the things that I would do before. Or, we don't get in trouble about behavior because that's just not what we do as an Adkins, right? And now it's like, I don't want them to feel that life is perfect because it's not. And when you face something that is not a reflection of what you've been trained to believe, you begin to go inward a lot of times, which is what happened for me, and blaming yourself or feeling like something's wrong with you because you're not lining up with this system or whatever the case may be. You may also begin to bury your voice. All these things that I struggled with, I think, can be an issue if you're not able to just live life and deal with it in the moment and not have this pressure of this standard having to be this way, because there's just a lot of things I question now that, did I make this rule, that this standard? Yeah, I believed it when I was growing up, but does this serve me now? And there's certain things that I just don't do with my kids. Yeah, it might have been ingrained in me as a child, but I say, you know what, that just doesn't serve me, that mindset, like this fake it till you make it type thing. I don't agree with that, because I think you can be authentic and talk about your weaknesses, and you're going to get a lot more done and be a lot more approachable. And you're going to ask the best questions that are going to help you learn so that you can overcome some of these weaknesses rather than pretending to be something you're not and then forgetting what script you're supposed to be reading from, if that makes sense, whenever you're in a certain situation.
There she goes again. Boom. Awesome. Thank you. So there's this quote by Les Brown where he says, "You don't get what you want. You get who you are. You get what you are."
That's good.
Yes. And as you said that, that's what I was thinking. And because even I don't believe in the fake it till you make it concept.
Right.
I believe in learning and getting better day after day after day, which is
true.
Probably why I've been doing the videos 33 days into it now.
Good for you. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Consistency is key. Okay.
Absolutely. And if I was about faking it till I made it, I wouldn't know what I made myself into. I wouldn't be right. And as you said, not knowing what script you're reading. So tell me about who you're becoming.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I am just comfortable with changing every day. I love being out of my comfort zone and learning new things. That was something that I love to learn as a child and throughout my life. But the learning that I did was always competitive, where it was like, I'm learning this because I want to be the best. Right. And I still have that in me, but I want to be the best version of me. It's not that I have to compete with other women or other mothers. It's about being better than I was the day before and being in a place to where I'm fun doing that. So I want people to enjoy my company, my space, and be inspired to learn as I learn. Because every day I feel like it's an adventure and it's something new to be excited about. So I love not really to be able to look at myself yesterday and say, that was good. But you know what? I can add to that today because I've talked to somebody and I've learned something new. And one of the things I would also say is the element of just having that space to reflect and ask questions is really important. A lot of these things that we say and do, the cliches, like even let's just say the fake it till you make it. If you believe in integrity, how would you even embrace that type of mindset? Integrity is about being real, authentic, and true. So faking it till you make it. I mean, some of these things we wouldn't even be embracing if we really sat down to reflect. How is that being a person of integrity to have that type of mindset? So it would not even be on your radar. So I think we get so caught up in trying to be all things to all people. We don't even have the time to reflect, which really makes sense because what we do is purposely put ourselves out of alignment every day. And if we just take the space a little bit in the morning to be intentional with our day, when these things come up and we are a person say, I want to be a person of integrity. I want to impact lives of others. I want to be authentically me. When those type of posts come up or those type of comments, they wouldn't even bother you. You wouldn't even embrace them because you'd be like, that's not what I'm about. So you wouldn't even be on that path. But, we have kind of been in this situation where we take pieces of this, pieces of that. we bring it together like it's going to fit, and it's a bunch of squares, a bunch of circles, triangles, and we thinking that it's all the same shape.
Definitely so Cindy says she was mainly wondering if her values changed after depression, and yes, you've answered that because I asked if what you were sharing was in alignment with what she asked. Josephine says today we need to help them, as in the children, align their values with greater awareness, and that they can't do everything. Kunen adds to say, where is that? He says, great conversation, useful insights indeed. Thank you so much. And he has this amazing question again, which is how to identify that I need to unlearn as well, and what's the best way to unlearn? Ah, yes.
That is such a great, that's what path I'm on, unlearning. And that's why I said, even in dealing with my children, so we have 8 of them e-learning, and 2 of them, my middle school boys, just are on a different plane. Everybody else is like ready for class, they're turning in their work. These 2, it's like pulling teeth. And I just sat down with them, and before I was just like, man, I just don't know what to do. How am I going to overcome this? But when you are in a space to interview people a lot, when you meet a lot of people, you hear their stories when they were kids, they just wasn't following everybody else's roadmap. They had their own voice, and I'm trying to embrace that. And I deal with them as they're not handling it the way I would, but at the same time, I don't know how to handle it because we are in a global pandemic. They are being faced with things being different than what they're used to. And everyone kind of responds to stress, anxiety, different ways. So I'm seeing them as their own versions of themselves. And I just keep communication with them. I just say, hey, there's consequences to if you don't get the grades that, we feel you should be getting. If you did good last year, there's no reason why you should do good this year. Now, I do understand that it's a very challenging situation doing remote learning. However, our standards aren't going to change, but there are ways that you might have to go about things differently to maintain the standards. So maybe you didn't need a tutor last year because you were in class and you were able to communicate with the teacher one-on-one or whatever. But now you may have to do things differently. You might have to study, when you didn't have to last year because you were able to grasp it in class. But because you're on a computer screen, you have more distractions. You can't just sugarcoat things or think it's cookie cutter. You might have to do something different to expand your education in a way that we have all never done it. So I just try to keep the communication open, and I always unlearn myself. My children have learned that I am transparent and I laugh at myself and the things that I don't know. And that's made it easier for them. One of the things that has helped too is the fact that they saw that I got a book written. And, they see me on the computer and they're thinking, oh, here she goes again on that computer. Nobody's over there, because they don't see it. Right. And so when the books arrived, they were like, wow, mommy, you did write a book. You did this when? And so that's when I explained to them. So I think just being an example and leading the way first is really good. And then having those conversations about, when they say things like, oh, this is dumb or this is silly, and then asking them questions. Okay, so tell me, what are you thinking about that? Why do you feel it's that way? Do you have another option that you think might work better for kids your age? And allow them to kind of think more about their expressions that they say instead of just thinking this is what all my other friends are saying. Because sometimes we say things, like I said before, without any substance behind it, no meaning. It's just said by other people. But when you begin to question them, that allows them to ask different questions of themselves. And that's the first step of awareness, is to begin to ask yourself questions instead of telling yourself statements. And this was something I struggled with my inner voice. It was always telling me things. You're not good enough. People are just going to see you as a failure. But then when I asked myself, well, how do I look like a failure? And then when I started just knocking that down, because I started realizing that's not true. I do this, I do that. And, asking yourself questions will definitely begin to get you on that path of moving in a different direction.
Hmm. And very often we're looking at ourselves as a failure because we are looking at someone else's definition of success,
Right.
right? We're looking at comparing ourselves with somebody else or looking at how life should be and
Mm-hmm.
not appreciating what it is.
So true.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, you know what? That may not even be that person's definition either. I go to a lot of summits and people will flash these different slides about, what their life looks like. And they just show those slides because they think that's what the people in the audience are aspiring for. And
Hmm.
so sometimes they don't even say anything. They just flash those slides and allow us to define success the way that they put it in front of us, but that may not be what our definition is. But are we asking ourselves the question, what is your definition of success? A lot of times we're not even asking the question, we're just accepting that success looks like this. I've heard so many people say success leaves clues. And so people look and say, oh, the clue is that I have a new car, that I have a house. That's not a clue for me. That might be why I don't find out. Mine is having peace of mind and a good night's sleep, right?
Mine's having a scoop of ice cream in the middle of a crazy busy day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For me, I feel if I can squeeze in a scoop of ice cream when I'm super busy, that means I've still made time for myself.
Oh, that's so good. I like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're getting to the end of the hour, so I'm just going to ask you a question that might help many watching and those who will catch up on replay.
Okay.
What is your advice for someone who knows someone or suspects that they know someone who's going through depression? Because a lot of us going through depression um, might not acknowledge it, might not even be aware of it, and it gives me goosebumps as I say this to you. We might be living under a rock, we might be feeling shameful, yet the
Yeah.
people around us are noticing the signs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they want to help in the best way, as I said, with good intentions. What's the best way to help somebody that way in that place?
Yeah. I love that. And, I only can speak from my own story. I'm not a doctor, psychologist, or therapist. But I think, going back to the elements of my smile definition is one is thinking about, infusing laughter, really talking to them about their energy, asking some of those simple questions. So, for example, I went on for years with not having 7 or 8 hours of sleep, but nobody really asked me, how much sleep I was getting. So sometimes you could ask a question that doesn't feel threatening to them. You could say, you know what? I've just been having a problem. I just have so much sadness. When was the last time you watched something funny? Just asking them a question. And it really will allow them to reflect. Because I know in my case, I wasn't doing anything with humor or wasn't sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night. I didn't have energy. I mean, a number of these things. And even if you preface it and saying, you know what, I just feel like I'm not being good to myself. I'm having issues where my own inner voice, I don't think it's very positive. What do you do when you have situations like that? So beginning to ask them those questions and really kind of be forward and transparent about it allows them the space to begin to ask those questions to themselves in a way that is not so threatening or feeling like it's judgmental. So it's always coming alongside them to let you know that you are an advocate for them and saying it in a way to where it's something that they kind of want to embrace. because I never had anybody ask me those questions. But now it's like, I am just like very transparent. I'll say, hey, I dealt with depression, and I'll just tell people, when is the last time you laughed? For me, I was numb for a number of years. I didn't even cry. I remember not really crying. And that was just me having this mindset that I can't be weak. My husband's not here. I have to do this because he's working. And if the kids need this, they need that. I don't have time to be weak. I don't have time to cry. I just have to suck it up. I got to be strong. This is going to pass. I'm going to get through this. And that's just another wall that you're building up that makes it harder to penetrate and bring down those barriers as things go. And that wall I would show to my husband. It'd be like, man, I would even be that way with him. I wouldn't even be transparent with him, because it was like, why am I going to be transparent with you? You're going to be working. You're not going to be able to help me anyway. So, just let me just stay strong. So, yeah.
The need to be strong. It's sometimes our strongest weakness.
Right. That's a good one.
Thank you. That's one of my quotes. Awesome. What's the one thing that you'd ask people to do different this conversation forward?
I would say really just take some time to think about, who do you want to be? We have a choice. So in my situation, I was trying to be all things to all people because I really didn't give myself the space to think, do you want to be that? Do you want to have this type of mindset about these issues? I just didn't take that time to reflect for myself. So I think really just taking the time to figure out, who do you want to be? And what does that look like to you? Because once you really fit into that place, the people that are there, that are supposed to be with you, that are supposed to get energy that you're willing to give, they'll be attracted to you. You'll be magnetic in that way. And we lose that when we try to be somebody else. We just lose that magnetism. And that's one of the things that keeps you energized. I know for me, it's people look at me and they're like, what? You do a podcast, you're writing books, you're writing for a magazine, because I stay in my lane. I know what I can do, and people are attracted to me, and they allow me the space to just put my little bit of what I bring to the table into their project. And I'm not trying to take the credit for everything. I'm just trying to be me and you coming together, making this broadcast. We're just trying to be each other, and we make it where it's a blessing to other people. So when you know who you are and who you want to be, and you embrace that, people see that, and you don't have to pretend. You don't have to seek validation from other people. You can just be your authentic self and show up, and you'll be able to accomplish everything you desire. That's what I believe.
Cindy says, I love what you said about, does this serve the great question to ask ourselves? Thanks for an awesome discussion.
Oh, thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm going to, LaChelle, would it be okay if we share how people can get hold of the books? Because you said you've got 20 amazing authors on board. Tell us. Yes, so that's the book, and we will share the link on comments once the broadcast is over, so that you can tap into the book if you'd like to, and that should be awesome. So yes, thank you for joining. And for everybody tuning in, thank you for staying. Thank you for joining in. It was an amazing session. I'm actually going to break this into bits and pieces and share it as smaller nuggets, because at every point you've given us such amazing insight. Thank you, LaChelle. It's an honor having you.
Oh, you are so welcome.
Thank you. And again, if you're new to the page, if you're new to the YouTube channel, please do subscribe and encourage the conversations. We have an amazing guest coming over next week as well, and I look forward to having you all on board. Thank you very much. Have a blessed the rest of the day. Thank you, LaChelle. Thank you all.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.